In an instant, my world turned upside down when my husband's voice, sharp and unforgiving, cut through the phone. "Why do you always collapse when I need you?" he complained, as if oblivious to the urgency that had me rushed to the hospital, our unborn child's safety hanging by a thread. "We're here hungry, waiting for your terrible cooking, and you're off relaxing in the hospital," he continued, his words devoid of concern. He declared he'd had enough and was going to dine out with his parents, leaving me to find my own way home. His anger reached me even through the phone, blaming me as if I were at fault for a dire situation, instilling fear and worry in me, especially for our unborn child whom I was desperate to protect. Once, I was a passionate cosmetic salesperson, recognized for my dedication and hard work, with a collection of awards and a reputation for excellence. I loved my job and the confidence it brought me. Meeting my husband seemed like a fairy tale, leading to a whirlwind romance and marriage. But the joy of discovering my pregnancy came with a tough decision to leave my job due to the risk of miscarriage, a choice made with our family's future in mind. As I navigated the challenges of pregnancy, my husband's support waned, transforming from excitement to frustration. Simple tasks became monumental, and my attempts to meet his expectations often fell short. "Where's my lunch?" he'd ask, only to scoff at the simple sandwiches I managed to prepare, citing my inability to handle smells. His words stung. Pregnancy is not an illness, dismissing my struggles and leaving me to fend for myself. This shift in his behavior was a stark contrast to the man I fell in love with. His companionship at doctor's visits faded, as did his empathy for the household chores that now seemed insurmountable to me. Our home, once a place of mutual respect and love, felt increasingly like a battleground, with me trying to protect not just my well-being, but that of our unborn child, clinging to the hope that somehow we'd find our way back to understanding and support. Perhaps he's just exhausted. He's taken on a mentorship role for a newcomer at work, and it's been demanding. This might explain why he's been less patient and more irritable with me lately. I keep telling myself that once our baby arrives, his hectic schedule will calm down, and we'll find our rhythm as a family. "It's going to be okay," I whisper, caressing my growing belly, trying to stay positive despite the struggles with my changing body and our strained relationship. Yet things haven't gotten better between my husband and me. To add to the tension, my in-laws have started to drop by without notice, increasing my stress levels. They question the cleanliness of our home and express concern over how we'll manage once the baby is here. Despite their criticisms, they expect hospitality and demand I prepare something for them to eat on the spot. Caught off guard, and without any preparations, I feel overwhelmed and criticized for not being a better host. Each visit from my in-laws ends with them leaving in disappointment, my husband siding with them, never defending me. Doing my best isn't enough. I'm left feeling inadequate in their eyes. On one such visit, after being sent out to buy groceries while heavily pregnant, I collapsed from the strain. I woke up in the hospital, learning I had passed out from overexertion, but thankfully, our baby was still safe. The doctors advised a few days of rest in the hospital. Seeing missed calls from my husband on my phone, I realized he must have been worried when I didn't return from the store. Yet when I finally called him back, hoping for some concern or relief in his voice, I was met with anger instead. "Where have you been?" he demanded, his words harsh and unforgiving, as if my health and our baby's safety were of no concern to him. Hearing his harsh words, I shuddered. "I'm sorry, I collapsed at the grocery store and was rushed to the hospital. They've put me on IV fluids and advised me to stay here for a few days for observation." But his response was cold and impatient, as if my well-being mattered less than his inconvenience. "You collapsed? And I'm supposed to care? Why don't you answer when I call you? You're so slow." His words cut deep, and I couldn't bear the thought of our unborn child being exposed to such negativity. "Please, stop yelling. It's not good for the baby." I tried to reason with him, but it was futile. He continued, undeterred by my plea for kindness. "We're here starving, waiting on your terrible cooking, and you're just taking it easy in the hospital." His intent to dine out with his parents and leave me to fend for myself, even in my condition, was clear. His voice, filled with anger and devoid of concern, made me recoil, Not wanting to expose my baby to any harsher words, I ended the call, feeling utterly alone and disheartened. As I returned to my hospital room, tears began to stream down my face uncontrollably. It was in this vulnerable moment, a familiar and comforting voice reached out to me. "Are you okay?" I looked up to find Helen, a customer I had grown close to during my days as a cosmetic salesperson, offering me a towel. Recognizing her immediately, relief and warmth flooded through me. "Helen, it's really you. I'm so glad you remember me." Our reunion felt like a twist of fate, a much-needed reminder of kindness and human connection in my darkest hour. Helen had been more than just a customer. She was a woman who, after a difficult divorce, had lost her self-confidence and had stopped wearing makeup entirely. I remembered the day I approached her at the cosmetics counter, offering to help her try some makeup. The transformation in her appearance was more than just physical. It was a moment of emotional healing for her, a step towards regaining her self-esteem. Over time, Helen became more than a customer. She became a friend. But suddenly, 5 years before I left my job, Helen stopped coming, and I had always wondered what had become of her. Now, here she was, a beacon of support when I needed it most. I had returned, hoping to reconnect with you, Helen. To my surprise, when I visited your previous place of work, I learned you had left, which really took me aback, Helen shared, her voice filled with a mix of surprise and disappointment. I apologize for suddenly dropping in. I was actually abroad for work. You see, I run a business overseas and it's been quite hectic. It's been ages since I've had the chance to enjoy American cuisine. So once things settled down a bit, I decided to come back. And would you believe it? Right after I tried to find you, I ended up here with appendicitis, she explained, her laughter lightening the mood despite the circumstance. It's just in the early stages, so medication should do the trick. Plus, if I were still abroad, the treatment costs would have been astronomical. In a way, I'm relieved it happened here. Helen continued, her optimism and familiar smile infectious. This unexpected reunion lifted my spirits, and we found ourselves joyfully reminiscing about the past. As the conversation deepened, Helen, with her ever-so-kind smile, gently probed, "You don't have to share if you're uncomfortable." But I couldn't help but notice you were upset earlier. What happened? Trusting Helen as I did, more than just as a former customer, but as a true friend, I opened up about the struggles with my husband and in-laws. I'm really worried about bringing my child into such an environment, afraid they'll be treated the same way I am. And now, without my job, the idea of living independently, let alone with a child, seems daunting. To my astonishment, Helen made an incredibly generous offer. I happen to have an apartment that you could use. I manage a few properties, part of a project I developed on land I inherited. It's a cozy 2-bedroom with a separate bathroom, soundproof walls, and it's situated in a safe neighborhood close to amenities like supermarkets and a police station. There's no need for a deposit right now, and you can start paying rent whenever you're settled. It's a really good deal. What do you think? Helen's enthusiasm was palpable, and her offer so sincere, it brought a laugh of disbelief from me. "Are you sure you can offer it at such favorable terms?" I asked, overwhelmed by her kindness.